Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we are taking a really fascinating look at the true state of the nation right now. But before we get bogged down in the heavy economic data, I've got to ask you a quick question. What do unicorn hunting licenses, 100 acres of pizza, and an $8 trillion AI boom all have in common?
I know, it sounds like the setup to a really strange joke, right? But honestly, these seemingly totally unrelated facts all perfectly capture the incredibly complex, multidimensional identity of the United States in 2026. This is a place literally defined by its extremes. We're talking about contrasting the absurdly funny with the seriously consequential. And to really grasp where this country is heading, we need to understand both the culture that shapes it and the hard data that's driving it. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to kick things off with the quirky American identity. Take a look at exactly who makes up America today, dive into the 2026 economic outlook, and then wrap up by navigating the affordability crisis. Section 1, the quirky American identity. Let's get into it. Okay, so there are some ridiculously specific laws still on the books today. I mean, in Alaska, it is officially considered an offense to push a live moose out of a moving airplane. In Alabama, it is strictly illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. And my absolute personal favorite, in Michigan, Lake Superior State University will actually issue you a license to hunt unicorns. They even have regulations for hunting them in the Milky Way. You literally can't make this stuff up, but it's this exact brand of eccentricity that perfectly highlights the American spirit.
And speaking of the American spirit, here's a number that brilliantly illustrates the country's cultural appetite. 100 acres. That is exactly how much pizza Americans consume every single day. 100 acres of pizza daily. To put that in perspective, that's enough pizza to cover dozens of football fields every 24 hours. It's a really fun, quirky anchor for their cultural identity. But now that we know what we're eating, let's zoom out a bit and look at the people who are actually eating it.
Section 2, who makes up America? So while the U.S. actually has no official language, a staggering 73 million people speak a language other than English at home. And if we exclude English and Spanish for a second, the variety across the country is just incredible. We're talking Tagalog in Nevada and Hawaii, German in states like North Dakota and Ohio, and French up in Maine. It's like a giant puzzle of a deeply multilingual landscape. And that diversity is heavily driven by this monumental figure, 50.2 million. As of 2024, that is the record high number of immigrants currently living in the U.S. They make up 14.8% of the total population. Now, what makes that 14.8% so historically significant is that it exactly matches the all-time historical peak set way back in 1890. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the makeup of this population. Despite all the intense political discourse you might hear, the data actually shows a very clear picture regarding legal status. As of 2023, 45% are naturalized citizens, 24% are lawful permanent residents, so your green card holders, and 5% are long-term non-immigrants. That means almost 3/4 of the immigrant population are in the country legally, while 26% are unauthorized immigrants. Let's see how this builds when we look at where new arrivals are coming from, because the origins have evolved dramatically. Between 2010 and 2024, the fastest-growing immigrant populations saw some truly incredible spikes. The Venezuelan community grew by a massive 437%. That was followed by arrivals from Afghanistan at 330% and Nepal at 200%. The demographic engine of this country is just shifting so incredibly fast. Section 3, the 2026 economic outlook. Now, the U.S. fiscal and labor market outlook shows a pretty concerning trajectory. The budget deficit, while it is shrinking slightly to a projected negative 5.5% of GDP in 2026, remains really persistent. And alongside that, as you can see, the unemployment rate has been steadily ticking up from 3.6% in 2023, and it's projected to hit 4.5% in 2026. And that rising unemployment, when you combine it with persistent inflation, creates what economists call a stagflation risk. The Federal Reserve is walking a massive, incredibly delicate tightrope right now. They've got to figure out how to handle a weakening job market while simultaneously battling tariff-induced price pressures that are just keeping inflation stubbornly above their target. It's a rare and honestly dangerous economic condition because, think about it, lowering rates to boost jobs can drive up prices even more, but raising rates to fight that inflation can totally stifle economic growth.
And this brilliantly illustrates another major economic wildcard we need to talk about: artificial intelligence. We have heard massive hype from tech executives, right? Like Sam Altman predicting AI agents would match PhD capabilities and just immediately transform the workforce. But let's contrast that prediction with the actual reality. So far, there is very little indication that AI has actually impacted aggregate US labor market conditions. Widespread business adoption simply takes a lot of time. So the AI revolution is actually moving much slower in the real economy than it is in the daily headlines. Section 4. Navigating the affordability crisis. With the November midterms approaching fast, the sheer day-to-day cost of living is the ultimate, inescapable issue for voters right now. And a huge part of that cost comes down to this specific number: 11.7%. As of 2026, a sweeping new executive tariff regime raised the effective tariff rate on imports to 11.7%. And the data shows that consumers are currently bearing more than half of that cost burden as it trickles right down to retail prices.
But you know that tariff impact is just one piece of the puzzle here. Households are facing compounding financial pressures this year. An estimated 20 million Americans are seeing their Affordable Care Act health insurance premiums roughly double, simply because those enhanced exchange subsidies expired. On top of that, electricity prices are rapidly rising across multiple states, and high inflation just continues to impact essential goods and groceries. It is a really heavy burden for the average consumer to carry.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it leaves us with this final thought. From the quirky, hilarious absurdity of unicorn hunting licenses, to the historic, record-tying shifts in global immigration, to the very real threats of stagflation and affordability crises, the United States is undeniably a land of extremes. The forces pulling at the economy and the culture right now are massive. So how exactly will the nation navigate this incredibly complex web in 2026? That is the defining question we will all be watching unfold in the year ahead. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those great questions, and I will see you next time.